Do you want to help a stray animal? Just subscribe, like, comment, and watch until the end, and you'll be helping save a precious life. Every action makes a real difference. Ran away the day you learned about the cancer. But what I did next will surprise you. Kat's letter. My dearest Martha, I left you the day before your first round of chemotherapy. I know you searched for me for weeks, putting up those handwritten posters with my picture all over the neighborhood. You probably thought I abandoned you when you needed me most. The truth is more complicated, and I need you to understand why I disappeared that day. I knew something was wrong before the doctor even called. Your scent had changed. There was something unfamiliar and frightening mixed with your usual lavender soap smell. I could sense it growing inside you, like a shadow taking shape. That morning, when you sat at the kitchen table staring at that terrible piece of paper from the hospital, I knew our life together was about to change forever. And I got scared, Martha. So scared that I squeezed through that loose screen in the sunroom window and ran. But I didn't run away from you. I was running towards something I needed to find before I could face what was coming. I still remember the first time we met. You were volunteering at the shelter, and I was the scraggly 7-year-old tabby that nobody wanted. Too old, they'd say, walking past my cage to the kittens. You came in that rainy Tuesday afternoon, your grey hair tucked under a plastic rain bonnet, water droplets still clinging to your sensible shoes. You didn't even glance at the playful kittens. Instead, you walked straight to my cage, looked me in the eyes and said, "You've had a hard life, haven't you, fella?" The shelter worker warned you I was standoffish, that I'd been returned twice already. "He's not very affectionate," she said. You just smiled and answered, "That's okay. I'm not looking for affection. I'm looking for company." And just like that, I was yours. You named me Chester because you said I looked distinguished, like an old professor you once knew. Your house became my safe haven. I'll never forget how patient you were those first few weeks when I hid under the bed, only coming out at night when you were asleep. You'd leave little plates of tuna on the floor, pretending not to notice when I'd sneak out to eat them. You never forced anything. Not your touch, not your attention, not even your gaze. You just waited as if you had all the time in the world. And then came that stormy night in October. The thunder was so loud it made the windows rattle, and something in me broke. I ran from under the bed and leaped straight into your lap as you sat in that old recliner, reading with your glasses perched on the tip of your nose. You didn't make a fuss. You just gently stroked behind my ears and said, "It's about time, Chester. I've been waiting for you." From that moment on, I decided to trust you completely. It wasn't easy. Trust never came naturally to me after what I'd been through. Before the shelter, I'd lived with an elderly man who passed away in his sleep. I was there for 3 days with his body before anyone found us. Then there was the family with the toddler who pulled my tail, and the father who shouted too loudly. And finally the young woman who loved me but couldn't afford to keep me when she lost her job. Each time I thought I'd found my forever home, something happened to take it away. So when I came to you, I kept waiting for the other shoe to drop. But it never did, Martha. You were constant as the sunrise, even on your bad days, when your arthritis flared up, or when you got that phone call that your sister had passed. You still made sure I was fed and comfortable. You'd sit in your chair with tears running down your cheeks, and I'd climb into your lap, not knowing how to help except to be there, to let you stroke my fur until your breathing steadied. Those years we spent together were the happiest of my life. I loved our morning ritual, how you'd shuffle to the kitchen in those blue slippers, make your coffee, and then prepare my breakfast. "Here you go, handsome," you'd say, setting down my bowl. Then you'd sit at the table with your toast and crossword puzzle, and I'd curl up nearby just watching you think. The way your forehead crinkled when you were stuck on a clue, how you'd tap your pen against your teeth in thought. These small moments became the rhythm of our days together. I loved the way you talked to yourself as you moved around the house, narrating your actions as if someone was listening. "Now where did I put those reading glasses?" Or "I think it's time to water the ferns." In a way I was listening, taking in every word, every habit, every quirk that made you who you were. You never used that silly, high-pitched voice with me that some humans use with their pets. You spoke to me like I was another person in the room, telling me about your day, your worries about your daughter in California who never calls enough, the book club meeting where nobody actually read the book. I loved those one-sided conversations, Martha. I may not have understood all the words, but I understood everything that mattered. Do you remember the summer your air conditioning broke during that terrible heat wave? You set up fans in every room and made ice packs for both of us. You'd dampen a washcloth and gently wipe it over my fur to cool me down, apologizing the whole time for the indignity. I know you can clean yourself, Chester, but desperate times call for desperate measures, you'd say. I didn't mind. I actually liked those cool cloths, though I'd never have admitted it. We'd sit together on the screened porch in the evenings, you in your lightweight nightgown with your feet in a basin of cool water, me stretched out on the concrete floor, both of us watching lightning bugs appear in the yard as dusk fell. Remember our spot by the bay window? The one where the afternoon sun would stream in, forming a perfect patch of warmth on the windowsill? You'd sit in the armchair with your knitting and I'd bask in the sunlight. Sometimes you'd reach over and touch my paw as if making sure I was still there. I was. I always was. We'd spend hours like that, in comfortable silence, the only sounds being the click of your knitting needles and an occasional car passing on our quiet street. Sometimes you'd read aloud to me from whatever book your club was discussing that month. I especially liked the mysteries, the way your voice would get all dramatic at the tense parts. Those were simple days, weren't they? Your retirement schedule of Tuesday grocery shopping, Wednesday book club, Thursday visits to your sister Mildred at the nursing home. I knew the rhythm of our life together by heart. I could predict your movements before you made them. There was such comfort in that predictability. The way you'd always check that the oven was off before going to bed, even if you hadn't used it that day. How you'd water the plants on Sunday mornings while still in your robe, humming hymns you remembered from childhood. The careful way you'd fold the newspaper after reading it, smoothing it out as if someone else might want to read it later, though it was just the two of us. I loved watching you get ready when your friends came over for bridge night. You'd change into one of your good blouses, the ones with the floral patterns that stayed in the back of your closet most of the time. You'd put on lipstick and a touch of that powdery perfume, then fuss with your hair in the mirror. "Do I look presentable, Chester?" you'd ask, and I'd meow in response, which always made you smile. Those evenings, I'd hide upstairs until your friends left. All those unfamiliar hands reaching to pet me was too much, but I'd listen to the sounds of your laughter drifting up the stairs, the clink of teacups, the occasional exclamation when someone won a hand. Those sounds made me happy, because I knew they made you happy. The garden was your pride and joy, and I'd follow you out there as you tended to your vegetables and flowers. You built that special enclosed area so I could sit safely in the sunshine without wandering off. I'd watch as you knelt in the dirt, your wide-brimmed hat shading your face, your gardening gloves stained with earth. You talked to your plants just like you talked to me, encouraging the tomatoes to ripen, scolding the roses for their thorns, praising the zinnias for their bright colors. In August, you'd bring in armfuls of vegetables, more than you could eat, and spend days canning tomatoes and making zucchini bread to give to neighbors. "From my garden," you'd say proudly when you'd present them with your homemade gifts. Do you remember that family of cardinals that nested in the lilac bush? You were so excited, checking on them every day from a distance, worried about disturbing them. When the eggs hatched, you called your daughter just to tell her about it. I watched those baby birds too, from my perch on the screened porch, my tail twitching with an instinct I never acted on, because I knew how much those birds meant to you. When they finally flew away, you looked a little sad, but then you said, "That's how it's supposed to be, Chester. They grow up and they go. That's life." Over the years, I watched as you adapted our home to accommodate your changing body. First came the grab bars in the bathroom, then the raised toilet seat, then the special cushion for your chair that made it easier to stand up. You'd make jokes about getting old, but I could sense your frustration when you dropped things and couldn't bend to pick them up, or when you had to ask the neighbor boy to change a light bulb because the stepladder wasn't safe for you anymore. "The spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak," you'd say with a sigh. I understood that more than you knew. My own body was changing too. Jumping to the windowsill took more effort than it used to. My naps grew longer, my play sessions shorter. The grey around my muzzle spread to my chest and paws. You noticed, of course, you noticed everything. "Getting old isn't for the faint of heart, is it, Chester?" you'd say, lifting me up to my favorite spot when I couldn't make the jump, your hands trembling slightly with the effort. We were growing old together, Martha. Growing old and comfortable in our shared silence, until that day when everything changed. I knew something was terribly wrong when you came home from the doctor's office and sat very still at the kitchen table. You didn't hang up your coat. You didn't feed me. You just sat there staring at nothing, your hands folded neatly in your lap. When you finally moved, it was to reach for the phone, and I heard you tell your daughter the news. Your voice was so calm, so matter-of-fact. The doctor found something? Yes, they want to do more tests. No, don't come yet, there's nothing to do until we know more. But I could smell the fear coming off you in waves. The next few weeks were a blur of appointments. You'd come home with new papers, new pamphlets with serious-looking medical words on them. You started making lists, endless lists, that you'd revise late into the night. Just getting my affairs in order, you told me, as if I'd asked. You made a point of acting normal, following our usual routines, but there was a new tension in your movements, a deliberateness, as if you were suddenly aware of every moment as it passed. The night after your official diagnosis, you sat me down as if I were a person. "Chester," you said, your voice shaking slightly, "I've got cancer. It's in my pancreas, and it's not good. They're going to try chemotherapy, but—" You couldn't finish the sentence. Instead, you gathered me into your arms and held me against your chest. I could feel your tears falling onto my fur. "I'm not ready to leave you," you whispered. "I'm just not ready." That night I curled up tight against your chest as you cried silently in bed. I tried to purr loud enough to drown out your thoughts, but some darknesses are too deep for even a cat's purr to reach. I stayed awake long after you fell into a fitful sleep, listening to the unfamiliar catch in your breathing, sensing the change that was already beginning inside your body. The next day, when you were in the bathroom being sick from the worry, I made my decision. I slipped out through the screen and ran. But what you couldn't know, what I couldn't tell you, was that I wasn't running away from the sickness or the sadness. I was running towards something I needed to find. I spent days wandering our neighborhood, looking for whatever it was that I felt called to discover. I went to the small park where you used to take your morning walks before your knees got bad. I visited the bookstore where you'd sit for hours in that corner chair, reading while I waited in the window at home. I even found my way to the community garden where you volunteered every spring, planting tomatoes you'd give away to neighbors. I went to the elementary school where you used to volunteer as a reading tutor, helping children who struggled with words. I remember how you'd tell me about each child when you came home. Tommy with his stutter who loved dinosaur books, Maria who was so shy but lit up when she mastered a difficult passage, Jackson who acted tough but had the gentlest way with the classroom guinea pig. You worried about those kids long after you stopped volunteering, wondering how they were doing, if they'd found their way with words. I walked past the diner where you and your friends would meet for coffee every Saturday morning. I could almost see you through the window, sitting in that corner booth, leaning forward eagerly as Ruth told a story, throwing your head back in laughter at something Doris said. You'd always bring me a little paper container of half and half from the table, sneaking it into your purse even though you didn't take cream in your coffee. "Our little secret," you'd whisper when you got home, pouring it over my dinner as a special treat. I found the bench by the duck pond where you'd sit in spring, watching the ducklings follow their mothers across the water. You'd bring stale bread, even though the sign said not to feed the ducks, breaking it into tiny pieces and tossing it when no one was looking. "I can't help it," you'd tell me later. "They look so hopeful." I walked past the houses of all your neighbors, Mrs. Abernathy, who always borrowed your recipes but never returned the cards, Mr. Wilson, who cleared your driveway with his snowblower every winter without being asked, the Chen family whose children you babysit occasionally, even though they exhausted you, the Robertsons who brought you soup when you had that terrible flu last year. All these connections, these threads that tied you to the world, that made up the fabric of your life. And then I understood. I wasn't searching for a place. I was gathering memories. I was collecting all the pieces of our life together, all the moments that made us who we were, because I knew somehow that our time was growing short. I needed to remember everything, every walk, every nap, every gentle word, to carry with me and with you into whatever came next. When I finally came home, you were sitting on the porch steps, looking thinner than when I'd left. Your hair, usually so neatly pinned up, was loose around your shoulders. You looked up and saw me crossing the lawn, and you didn't shout or scold. You just opened your arms and said, "Oh, Chester, you came back." I walked straight to you, not hesitating for a moment. And when you lifted me onto your lap, I could feel the bones of your legs more prominently than before. You buried your face in my fur, your tears warm against my neck. I thought I'd lost you too. you whispered. I can't lose everything at once, Chester. I just can't. From that day on, I never left your side again. I went with you to every doctor's appointment, waiting patiently in the carrier you decorated with colorful fabric to make it less prison-like, as you said. I stayed curled at your feet during your chemotherapy sessions at home when the nurse would come and hook up those bags of medicine that made you so tired afterward. I learned to recognize the signs of when you were about to be sick, and I'd gently headbutt your leg to warn you, so you could make it to the bathroom in time. The months that followed were hard, Martha. I watched you lose your beautiful silver hair that you'd always kept so neatly styled. Small tufts at first, finding their way onto your pillow, your clothes, between your fingers as you absent-mindedly ran a hand over your head. Then larger clumps, until you finally asked the neighbor girl to come over with her scissors. Might as well get ahead of it, you said with forced cheerfulness as she cut what remained into a short pixie style. Later that night, I found you sitting on the bathroom floor staring at your reflection, your hand shaking as it moved over the unfamiliar landscape of your scalp. I climbed into your lap and pressed my head against your chest until you started to stroke my fur, finding comfort in the familiar motion. I saw how the pain made you curl into yourself, how you'd grip the edge of the countertop when a wave of it passed through you. I watched as you studied the medication schedule the doctor gave you, organizing pills into those little plastic containers, carefully following instructions even as your hands trembled. But I also saw your courage, how you'd still put on lipstick before the doctor came, how you never missed sending a birthday card to your grandchildren, how you'd still feed the birds on the back porch every morning, even when your hands shook too much to hold the seed steady. Even on your worst days, you'd find the strength to fill my bowl and change my water. We take care of each other, you'd whisper, your hand trembling as it stroked down my back. That's the deal we made, Chester. You fought so hard, Martha. Through the nausea and the fatigue, through the long nights when sleep wouldn't come, through the seemingly endless trips to the hospital. You'd come home from each appointment with a brave face, trying to focus on any positive news the doctor might have shared. The tumor hasn't grown this month, you'd say, or my blood counts are a little better. You'd write these small victories on the calendar in the kitchen, marking the good days with a little star. But then came the morning when you couldn't get out of bed. You called for me, your voice faint, and I jumped up beside you, worried by the grey pallor of your skin. I need you to be very brave, Chester, you said, your breath coming in short gasps. I need to call for help, and there are going to be strangers in the house, but don't be scared. They're coming to help me. You managed to reach the phone on the nightstand, but your fingers were too weak to dial. I watched, helpless, as you struggled, until finally giving up and pressing the medical alert button you wore around your neck. Smart investment, you whispered to me, with a weak smile as we waited for the ambulance to arrive. They took you away that day, and I spent hours alone in the house, pacing from window to window, listening for the sound of your key in the lock. When the door finally opened, it wasn't you but your daughter Ellen who walked in. She looked so much like you. The same eyes, the same way of tilting her head when she was thinking. But there was a tension in her face that I'd never seen in yours. "Hi, Chester," she said softly, kneeling to offer her hand for me to sniff. "Mom's in the hospital. She's going to be there for a little while, but she made me promise to come check on you." Ellen stayed that night, sleeping in your bed. I could hear her crying quietly after she turned out the light. I wanted to comfort her the way I comforted you, but she was a stranger to me, and I didn't know how to bridge that gap. Instead, I kept vigil on the windowsill, watching the street, waiting for your return. You did come home, but not as you left. Your daughter and a nurse helped you into the house, supporting you between them as you shuffled to the living room. You were thinner than ever, your clothes hanging loosely from your frame, your skin almost translucent. But your eyes, they lit up when you saw me waiting by the door. "There's my boy," you said, your voice barely above a whisper. "Did you miss me?" When your daughter finally came to stay permanently, I knew things were getting worse. She brought with her the smell of airports and worry, and she looked at you with eyes so full of fear that I had to look away. But she was kind to me. "Mom talks about you all the time," she told me one day as she refilled my bowl. "She says you're the best medicine she's ever had." The hospital bed they brought into the living room meant you didn't have to climb the stairs anymore. I made it my mission to stay on that bed with you, nestled against your legs, careful not to disturb the tubes and wires. The hospice nurse called me the guardian cat, and would gently move me aside when she needed to check on you, but she always made sure I could get back to my spot when she was done. He hasn't left her side, I heard her tell your daughter one day as they stood in the kitchen. It's remarkable, really. Some animals seem to know. And I did know, Martha. I knew your body was failing, that the medicine wasn't working anymore, that the doctors had run out of options. I could smell the change in you, not just the hospital smell or the medication smell, but something deeper, something fundamental shifting. But I also knew that you were still you, still my Martha with the gentle hands and the soft voice who had saved me all those years ago. Those final weeks were so quiet, Martha. The house filled with the soft beeping of machines and the hushed voices of visitors who didn't stay long. Friends would come by with casseroles and flowers, standing awkwardly at the foot of your bed, not knowing what to say. Some would cry, turning away to hide their tears. Others would talk too loudly about trivial things, as if the volume of their chatter could drown out the reality of what was happening. You received them all with grace, thanking them for coming, asking about their children, their gardens, their lives that were continuing while yours was coming to an end. I watched as you gradually spoke less and slept more. The pain medication made you confused sometimes. You'd look around the room with a puzzled expression, as if trying to remember where you were. But whenever you were awake, you'd look for me, and I'd move up to rest my head on your pillow, close enough that you could feel my whiskers against your cheek. Sometimes you'd talk to me, not full sentences anymore, but fragments of thoughts. "Remember the cardinal babies," you might whisper. Or, "I never did finish that sweater for Ellen." I'd purr in response, letting you know I was listening, that I remembered too. Your daughter was a constant presence, tending to you with a gentle efficiency that reminded me of you. She'd brush your thin hair, carefully wash your face and hands, help you sip water through a straw. Sometimes she'd climb onto the bed beside you, holding your hand and talking softly about her children, your grandchildren, Sam's baseball trophy, Lily's dance recital, little moments of life you were missing but could still share through her stories. I'd watch your face during these conversations, see the small smile that would appear at the mention of those children you loved so much. The hospice workers came and went, checking machines, adjusting medications, speaking to your daughter in low voices in the hallway. They were kind, these strangers who helped ease your pain. One of them, a young woman with colorful tattoos on her arms, would always greet me before she greeted anyone else. "How's our boy doing today?" she'd ask, giving me a gentle scratch under the chin. "Taking good care of Mama, aren't you?" I liked her. The way she spoke to you with respect, the way she never rushed through her tasks, the way she seemed to understand the importance of small comforts. Your sister Mildred came to visit, making the long trip from her nursing home, accompanied by her son. She was older than you, but somehow seemed younger now. Her face creased with worry as she sat by your bed, holding your hand in both of hers. "My little sister," she kept saying, shaking her head in disbelief. "My little sister." When she left, she stopped to pet me, her hand trembling much like yours did. "Take care of her," she told me, as if she knew I understood. She always loved you so much. As the days passed, the house settled into a quiet routine centered around your care. Ellen would make phone calls in the kitchen, updating family members on your condition, her voice breaking occasionally despite her efforts to stay composed. The hospice nurse would come in the morning and again in the evening. Meals were eaten in shifts, someone always staying by your side. I took to sleeping on the chair next to your bed rather than on it, sensing that even my slight weight might cause you discomfort now. The night before you left, you had a moment of surprising clarity. Your eyes opened wide and you looked right at me, really saw me, in a way you hadn't for days. You lifted your hand, so light now, like a bird's wing, and touched my ear. "You came back," you whispered. "You came back for the end." Ellen was sleeping on the couch, exhausted from the weeks of vigilance. It was just you and me in the dim light of the single lamp she kept on in case you needed something in the night. You motioned weakly, and I understood that you wanted me closer. Carefully, I climbed onto the bed and settled against your side, feeling the shallow rise and fall of your breathing. "I was so angry when you left," you murmured, your voice so faint I had to strain to hear it. "Thought you sensed what was happening and couldn't bear it. But you came back, braver than me. I wished then that I could speak your language, that I could tell you why I really left, not from fear or abandonment, but to gather our shared history, to make sure it wasn't lost. Instead, I pressed my head against your hand, hoping somehow you would understand. "Good boy," you whispered, your fingers lightly stroking my fur. "Best friend." Your eyes drifted closed, but your hand remained on my back, a touch so light I could barely feel it. I stayed perfectly still, not wanting to disturb that precious connection. You slipped away in the early morning, when the first birds were just beginning to sing. I felt the moment you left. Something subtle changed in the air, like a door closing very softly in a distant room. Your hand had fallen away from my fur hours before, but I hadn't moved, wanting to be as close to you as possible until the end. I stayed with you until Ellen woke and came to check on you, her sharp intake of breath telling me she knew immediately what had happened. She didn't cry right away. Instead, she sat on the edge of the bed and gently took your hand, holding it between both of hers. "Oh, Mom," she said softly. Then she noticed me, still curled against your side. "He knew," she whispered. "He stayed with you." I stayed until they came to take you away. Strangers in uniforms who spoke in hushed tones and moved with practiced efficiency. Ellen picked me up and held me as they transferred your body to a stretcher, covering you with a soft blanket. I watched over her shoulder as they wheeled you out the front door, down the ramp they had installed when you could no longer manage the steps. The morning sun caught the silver handles of the stretcher, making them gleam briefly before the doors of the van closed, taking you away forever. Ellen held me for a long time after you were gone, her tears soaking into my fur. "She loved you so much," she kept saying. "So much." Eventually, she set me down gently on your favorite chair and went to make phone calls, her voice steady now as she delivered the news to family and friends. I couldn't stay on that chair. Your scent was already fading from it. Instead, I retreated to your bedroom, jumping up onto your pillow, the one place that still smelled strongly of you. The days that followed were a blur of activity. People came and went, bringing food, taking away items, speaking in low voices. Ellen boxed up some of your clothes, tears streaming down her face as she folded your favorite cardigan, the blue one with the pearl buttons that you wore on special occasions. She found homes for your plants, giving them to neighbors who promised to care for them. She spent hours sorting through papers at your desk, organizing documents, making phone calls. She wanted to take me back to California with her, but I think she understood when I kept returning to your chair, your bed, your favorite spot by the window. "He won't adjust well to the move," I heard her tell someone on the phone. "He's 12 years old, and this is the only home he's known with her. And my husband's allergic anyway." There was a pause. "No, the neighbor across the street has offered to take him. She's known him for years, and she'll let me visit when I come back to check on the house." Mrs. Peterson from across the street, the one with the garden almost as nice as yours, came over with a small bag of treats and sat on the floor, talking to me quietly while Ellen packed her suitcase. "You'll come live with me, Chester," she said, holding out her hand for me to sniff. "I know it won't be the same, but you'll have a good home. Martha would want that." I let her pet me, recognizing her as one of your bridge partners, someone who had been in our home many times over the years. She wasn't you, but she was kind, and her house would be close enough that I could still see our home from her windows. The day Ellen left, she knelt in front of me, her eyes red from crying. "Be good, Chester," she said, scratching under my chin the way you used to. "I'll come back to check on you. And thank you for being there for her." She left me your blue throw blanket, the one you used to wrap around your shoulders on chilly evenings. Mrs. Peterson put it in a special spot by her living room window, and I sleep on it every night, your scent still faintly present if I press my nose deep into the fabric. Your daughter still comes to check on me. She fills my bowl and changes my water, just as you taught her. Sometimes she sits in your chair and talks to me the way you used to. She's more like you than she knows. The same thoughtful pause before speaking, the same habit of tucking her hair behind her ear when she's concentrating. She brings me little gifts, a new toy, a special treat, and always takes a picture to show her children. "They ask about you all the time," she tells me. "Mom's famous cat." I'm getting older now, Martha. My joints ache when it rains, and I sleep more than I used to. The windowsill seems higher than it once was, but I still watch the birds at the feeder you hung, and I still sleep on your pillow at night when I visit our old house with Mrs. Peterson. Your daughter hasn't sold it yet. She says she's not ready. Sometimes she stays there when she visits, sleeping in your bed, using your dishes. I think she's not ready to let go either. Mrs. Peterson is good to me. She doesn't try to replace you. She seems to understand that wouldn't be possible. Instead, she's created a space for me in her life, respecting my habits, learning my preferences. She talks to me too, not the way you did, but with her own kind of affection. Martha would be happy to see you eating so well, she'll say, as she watches me finish my dinner. Or, you're looking handsome today, Chester. Martha always said you were the most distinguished cat in the neighborhood. Life goes on, as it must. The seasons change. The garden blooms and fades. Snow covers the ground and melts away. Spring returns with its chorus of birdsong. But I carry you with me through it all, Martha. Every sunrise reminds me of how you'd stand at the kitchen window with your first cup of coffee, saying, "It's going to be a beautiful day, Chester." Every gentle touch recalls your hands, how they moved with such care, whether turning the pages of a book or stroking my fur. Someday soon, I'll join you. My body is slowing down just as yours did. I don't mind, I've had a good life. Better than I could have hoped for when I was that frightened cat in the shelter cage. You gave me that good life, Martha. You gave me a home, not just a place to live, but a place to belong. You showed me what it means to be loved unconditionally, to be seen for who I truly am. And when I do join you, I hope you'll be waiting for me, your lap ready, your hand outstretched to scratch behind my ears, just the way I like. But until then, I want you to know that I didn't leave because I was afraid of what was happening to you. I left to gather everything I loved about our life together, so I could bring it back and keep it safe for both of us. You were my person, Martha, the only one who ever really saw me, the one who waited patiently until I was ready to trust, the one who created a home where both of us could feel safe, the one who taught me that love isn't just about the big moments, but about the 1,000 small kindnesses that make up a life together. And wherever you are now, I hope you know that I saw you too. Your kindness, your strength, your quiet courage, the way you hummed while you watered your plants, the way you always saved the last bite of your toast for me, the way you faced each day, even the hardest ones, with grace and determination. I saw all of it, and I loved you for it. They say animals can't understand love the way humans do, but they're wrong, Martha. Love is love, whether it's expressed in words or in the silent presence of a companion who never leaves your side. I may not have been able to tell you how much you meant to me, but I hope you felt it. In my purr against your chest, in my head butting against your hand, in my constant presence through your darkest days. Until we meet again on the other side of this great mystery, know that you are remembered. In the rhythm of my days, in the warmth of the sun that reminds me of our afternoons by the window, in the silence of evenings that once were filled with your voice. You live on in these memories, Martha. In every corner of the house where we shared our lives, in every habit I still keep, the way I check the front window at 4 o'clock when you used to come home from your volunteer work, or how I still leave room on the couch as if you might sit down beside me at any moment. I wonder sometimes if you can see me now, if you know that I sleep with your blue sweater that Ellen left behind, the one that still carries the faintest trace of your scent. If you can see how Mrs. Peterson reads to me sometimes in the evening, just like you used to do. She doesn't know all our favorites, but she tries. She's learning what I like and what I don't, slowly building our own relationship day by day. There's a new family living in the house on the corner now. They have a little girl who stops to pet me when I'm sitting on Mrs. Peterson's front porch. Her hands are gentle like yours were, and sometimes I let her hold me for a few minutes before I wiggle free. She calls me Mr. Cat and tells me about her day at school, about the butterfly she saw in the garden, about the book her teacher read to the class. I listen to her the way I listen to you, with the same patient attention, and I think you would approve. Spring has come again to our street. The daffodils you planted along the walkway are blooming, bright yellow against the green grass. The lilac bush where the cardinals nested is heavy with fragrant purple flowers. The neighborhood feels like it's waking up after a long sleep, stretching toward the sun. Life continues its cycle with or without us. There's both sadness and comfort in that, isn't there? Your daughter brought her children to visit last month. They're taller than when you last saw them, growing so quickly as children do. Sam has your eyes, did you know that? The same thoughtful gaze, the same way of tilting his head when he's thinking. And Lily, she found one of your old scarves in a drawer. and asked if she could have it. She wore it the entire visit, wrapping it around her shoulders just the way you used to do. They're carrying pieces of you forward, Martha, into a future you won't see, but somehow helped to shape. As for me, I'm content in my new life, even as I miss you every day. Mrs. Peterson is patient with my old cat ways, my particular preferences, my occasional grumpiness. She understands that I need to visit our old house sometimes, to walk through the rooms where we lived our life together, to sit in your favorite spots and remember. Memory is what I have now. Memory and the comfort of knowing that you are at peace. I think about the last thing you said to me that night before you left. You came back for the end. But that wasn't quite right, was it? I came back for all of it, for every moment we had left, whether joyful or painful, or somewhere in between. I came back because being with you, being your cat, your companion, your friend, that was my purpose, my joy, my life's greatest gift. When my time comes, I hope it's peaceful, like yours was. I hope I have time to settle myself in a patch of sunlight, to close my eyes with dignity, to feel the warmth of love surrounding me as I make my transition. And I hope, with every fiber of my being, that you'll be there waiting, ready to welcome me home. Until then, I'll continue to live each day with the grace you taught me. I'll enjoy the simple pleasures, sunbeams on the windowsill, a comfortable bed, a gentle touch. I'll be kind to those who care for me, patient with those who don't understand me, and open to whatever small joys each day might bring. It's what you would want for me, I know. It's how you lived your own life, even when it was difficult. And so, my dearest Martha, I say goodbye for now, but not forever. The love we shared transcends this separation, bridges the gap between your world and mine. It lives in my memories, in my daily habits, in my very being. You shaped me into the cat I am today, a cat who knows how to love, how to trust, how to be loyal until the end. Thank you for choosing me that rainy day at the shelter. Thank you for your patience, your kindness, your unwavering love. Thank you for giving me a home, not just a house, but a true home, filled with warmth and security and belonging. You were and always will be my person, my Martha, my heart. Until we meet again, with all my love, Chester.